On January 5th, 2012, an image appeared on the internet's most chaotic message board. It was stark, black text on a white background. It spoke of a quest to find highly intelligent individuals and offered a cryptic starting point. At the bottom, a simple stylized logo of a cicada. In the digital underground, where noise is constant, this signal was different. It wasn't for money or fame. It was an invitation for minds. This wasn't just another post. It was a digital ghost, a whisper in the machine, and for a select few it was the start of the most elaborate and mysterious puzzle the internet has ever seen. This is the story of Cicada 3301. My name is Joel Eriksson. I'm a crypto historian, and for years I've been obsessed with the trail left behind by Cicada. This isn't just a story about code. It's about a global scavenger hunt that blended the digital and physical worlds, drawing on history, philosophy, and art. It's a story that asks a profound question: who is behind Cicada 3301, and what did they want? To understand the beginning, you have to understand the methods. The first image was a masterclass in deception. It looked simple, but it was anything but. Buried within the pixels of the image file itself was another message. This technique is called steganography, the art of hiding information in plain sight. It's an ancient practice used by spies and revolutionaries for centuries, now repurposed for the digital age. One of the first people to see this message was a young programmer named Wanner. He was just scrolling like any other night. I was 15, I think. I spent a lot of my time on forums, places like 4chan. You see all sorts of weird stuff, but this was different. It didn't feel like a prank. It felt serious. The message said, "We are looking for highly intelligent individuals. To find them, we have devised a test." The tone was so authoritative. I immediately saved the image and started looking at it in a text editor. And there it was, hidden inside the image data, another clue. It was a simple Caesar cipher, but it was just the first lock on a door with 1,000 more behind it. Marcus wasn't alone. Across the globe, thousands of others found the same image. The internet erupted. Forums and chat rooms lit up. This wasn't just a puzzle, it was a race. A community of solvers formed almost overnight, a decentralized hive mind working together. They were driven by pure curiosity. The initial ciphers were relatively straightforward, designed to filter out the casual observer. They were a test of dedication. But then the rabbit hole got deeper. The puzzles led solvers to a book, the Mabinogion, a collection of medieval Welsh prose. Another clue pointed to a specific passage in a poem by Ralph Waldo Emerson. Suddenly, this wasn't just about technical skill. Cicada was testing for cultural literacy, for a deep knowledge of literature and history. It was clear this was created by a group with a profound, almost academic level of intellect. The puzzle masters were scholars as much as they were programmers. The complexity was staggering. It felt like every corner of human knowledge was fair game. We saw references to ancient cryptographic methods once used by Julius Caesar, but also complex modern algorithms. The sheer breadth suggested this wasn't the work of one person. It had the signature of a sophisticated organization, one that valued not just logical problem-solving, but a holistic Renaissance-style intelligence. It reminded me of the old mystery schools, groups that used riddles and intellectual trials to find their next generation of acolytes. Just as the solvers were getting comfortable in the digital realm, Cicada changed the rules. One puzzle resolved to a set of GPS coordinates. Suddenly, the game spilled out into the real world. These coordinates pointed to locations in cities across the globe: Warsaw, Paris, Seattle, Miami, Seoul. At each location, taped to a lamppost or a sign, was a poster with the Cicada logo and a QR code. The hunt was no longer just online, it was physical. Imagine the logistics. Solvers had to coordinate across time zones, convincing strangers to travel to a random spot in their city based on an anonymous internet puzzle. It required an incredible level of trust and collaboration. A solver in Poland would find a flyer, scan the code, and relay the next clue back to the forums for decoders in Australia or Brazil to work on. It was a beautiful, chaotic example of global teamwork, all orchestrated by an invisible hand. The puzzles became even more esoteric. Solvers were led to cryptic literature, obscure philosophy, and ancient texts. They encountered works by the mystic artist William Blake and the occultist Aleister Crowley. One clue was an AC art image of a cicada, which itself contained another layer of hidden data. Another was a complex poem from a collection called the Liber Primus, or First Book, seemingly written by Cicada 3301 itself. The Liber Primus was the Holy Grail. It was a book of cryptographic puzzles written in runes, a philosophical manifesto. It spoke of intellectual freedom, of rejecting dogma, and of the idea that truth should be discovered, not handed down. It was then that many solvers, including myself, realized the true nature of this challenge. This wasn't a game. It wasn't a marketing stunt. It felt like a recruitment program for something far more significant. I was deep in it at this point. I wasn't sleeping. It was all consuming. We were translating runes, analyzing Gnostic texts, exploring darknets. The scope was mind-bending. You had to be a cryptographer, a historian, a philosopher, and a programmer all at once. Or you had to be part of a team that had all those skills. Cicada wasn't looking for a lone genius like Alan Turing, locked away in a room. They were looking for people who could collaborate, who could contribute their piece to a much larger puzzle. They were building a team, and for a handful of solvers, including Marcus Wanner, they were about to reach the end of the first test. After weeks of relentless effort, after following the trail through cyberspace and across continents, they solved the final puzzle of the 2012 sequence. The reward wasn't money or a prize. It was an email address, a private doorway. They had been deemed worthy. They sent an email into the void announcing their success, and then for a while, silence. The public puzzle went dead. The forums grew quiet. For those who had made it to the end, a new, more secret phase of the journey was about to begin. They had been invited inside. But inside what? The mystery was only just beginning. The first wave of Cicada 3301 was over, but the ghost in the machine was just getting started. And exactly 1 year later, it would return. Thanks for watching. If you're fascinated by this mystery, make sure to subscribe, because in the next chapter, we'll go inside and reveal what the winners found. The puzzles left behind by Cicada 3301 started to change. The text and images that had challenged the world's brightest minds began to give way to something far more unsettling: audio files. These weren't just random noises. They were carefully constructed soundscapes filled with whispers, strange electronic tones, and distorted voices that seemed to claw their way out from the shadows of the internet. One of the few who managed to keep up was a young codebreaker named Marcus Wanner. He would listen for hours, trying to make sense of the digital cacophony. Cicada wasn't just speaking in text anymore. It had developed a language all its own. For those who knew where to look, or rather how to listen, the audio files were a treasure trove of hidden information. The real magic happened when you ran these sounds through a spectrogram, a tool that visualizes sound frequencies. Hidden within the static and noise were images, symbols, and even more text. This technique is called audiosteganography, the art of hiding data within sound itself. It was a brilliant, almost artistic way to filter out those who couldn't think in multiple dimensions. But the effect was more than just technical. It was psychological. The eerie, distorted sounds were designed to be unnerving, a test of a person's resolve as much as their intellect. It was as if Cicada was asking, "Can you handle the darkness?" After months of grueling tests, only a handful of solvers, including Marcus, remained. The final clues led them away from the public internet and into its hidden underbelly, the dark web. Using specialized software like the Onion browser, they navigated to a secret address, an inner sanctum reserved only for the chosen few. What they found wasn't a congratulatory message or a prize. Instead, they were met with a series of cryptic messages that felt less like a puzzle and more like an interview. The final stage had begun. Marcus Wanner later described this phase as the most intense part of the journey. The messages were no longer about cryptography or steganography. They were personal, probing. Cicada 3301 made its intentions clear. They were looking for highly intelligent individuals, people who could think outside the box. But then came the most chilling part. They were also looking for people with a certain moral flexibility, individuals with no moral boundaries. The recruitment wasn't just for smart people. It was for smart people who were willing to operate in the gray areas of society, perhaps even beyond them. Suddenly the game felt very, very real. The question was no longer, can you solve the puzzle? But are you one of us? So who was behind this elaborate, multi-year global recruitment campaign? The answer remains one of the internet's greatest mysteries, but there are several compelling theories. The first, and perhaps most popular, is that Cicada 3301 was a recruitment tool for a government intelligence agency. Like the NSA in the US or MI6 in the UK, historically, agencies have used complex puzzles to find top-tier codebreakers. The most famous example is Alan Turing, who was recruited by the British after cracking the Enigma code during World War II. Cicada's methods felt like a modern, digital evolution of that very same strategy, a way to find the next generation of cyber spies. Another leading theory, proposed by cybersecurity analyst Joel Eriksson, is that Cicada was the work of a private group of cyber-mercenaries. Think of a shadowy organization of elite hackers for hire, operating outside of any national allegiance. They might sell their skills to corporations, governments, or wealthy individuals, engaging in everything from corporate espionage to political disruption. In this scenario, the puzzles were an audition, a way to find new talent for a global network of digital soldiers of fortune. This theory is particularly unsettling because it suggests a powerful, unaccountable group with immense technical skill operating purely for profit. Then there's the third theory, which is perhaps the most fantastical, yet strangely plausible. What if Cicada 3301 was a modern-day secret society, a digital cult? The use of esoteric symbols, the focus on enlightenment and prime numbers, and the almost spiritual journey the puzzles took participants on all point towards something more than just a job application. This theory suggests Cicada was building a collective of brilliant minds dedicated to a shared secret ideology. Was it a benevolent group trying to advance humanity from the shadows? Or was it something more sinister, a new kind of digital cult recruiting its disciples from the brightest corners of the internet? The implications of such a group are staggering. It could represent a new kind of power, a super agency unbound by geography or law. After the 2014 puzzle, Cicada 3301 released one final image in 2015, then another in 2016 which contained only a cryptographic signature verifying the previous messages. And then, silence. The puzzle stopped. The messages ceased. The enigmatic organization that had captured the world's attention simply vanished as mysteriously as it had appeared. The forums and chat rooms that were once buzzing with activity fell quiet. All that was left was the last Cicada image, hanging in the digital air like an unanswered question. But the silence doesn't mean it's over. The legacy of Cicada 3301 is profound. It created a blueprint for a new kind of global recruitment, proving that you can find and vet the smartest people on the planet using nothing more than the internet and a series of clever puzzles. It demonstrated a new kind of power, one that is decentralized, anonymous, and incredibly potent. For Marcus Wanner, Joel Eriksson, and everyone who touched the mystery, the experience was life-changing. It raised deep philosophical questions. What happens when the world's most intelligent minds are recruited by an unknown entity with an unknown agenda? We may never know who Cicada 3301 was or what they wanted, but the chilling possibility remains that they found what they were looking for, and that somewhere, right now, they're still watching. Thanks for watching, and if you're fascinated by the mysteries of the digital world, make sure to subscribe for more.